Okay, good evening everyone, and a very warm welcome to this next new entrants webinar. I'm Robert Ramsey. I'm a beef consultant with SEC, and I am joining you today by a phone link. I've got a bit of technical issues, so I'm working a wee bit blind here, but hopefully this works okay. So I'm chairing this evening, and I will just also welcome along our main speaker for tonight, who is Rebecca McBain, who works out of one of our consultants from the Sainston office. So some of you may know her already. Just many of you will have been on webinars before. It's all pretty straightforward, and we'll try and stick as best we can to time. So hopefully we've got about an hour. It's a bit of a whistle-stop tour through all things sheep records, and there will be some time for questions at the end. We might not get all those questions done, so the sooner you get your questions in, the better. And the way to do that is to use the questions function on your side panel. You'll see that on your screen. If you type in your questions, I'll deal with them later on, and we'll ask them. We'll save them all to the end and ask them at the end. But if you can get them in, the sooner the better with them. The other thing we've got is a few polls throughout today, so there's a bit of voting to do as well, and it's done through the poll will pop up on the screen and you answer the question. Sometimes there's a wee issue with the polling function, and you have to basically all you have to do is click escape to minimise it, and then it should sort itself out from there. So if you've got any issues, that's how you rectify that. But if you are all sitting comfortably, I would just like to pass across to Rebecca.
Yeah, thank you, Robert. That was great. I think just to start off with, we'll just run a poll to begin with. So if we just run it now. Yep. So we're just sharing the poll results now, so you can see. Okay, I think we'll just make a start to tonight's presentation. So good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining tonight's webinar, Sheep Record Keeping. So as previously said, I'm Rebecca McBain, and I'm a consultant with SEC Consulting. The aim of tonight's meeting is for you all to get up to date with sheep record keeping. I'm aware it can seem quite a challenging task, and whilst I'm sure we all prefer in working with the sheep, it's another important aspect of sheep farming. I've done my best to summarise the points of sheep record keeping. However, due to the nature of the topic, I'm conscious that this may still seem like quite an intense hour. Not to worry though, if you do not follow everything, a recording of this webinar will be uploaded to the FAST website over the next few weeks so that you can listen back to it if required. So the following presentation will include stock identification, i.e. when sheep are ear tagged or replacement tagged, movement of stock, including when sheep arrive, leave or die, and lastly, medicine records. So stock recording. So why do we do it? New rules and regulations came into force at the end of 2009, and they're intended to improve animal traceability by introducing individual animal recording, allowing disease outbreak to be managed more effectively, and thus improving food safety and biosecurity. These rules are enforced by the Sheep and Goats Scotland Order 2009, however, also linked to cross-compliance in your BPS. Therefore, it's really important to follow the guidance, as failing to do so could impact on your basic payments. There are 5 key requirements to the legislation. You must register as a new keeper on every holding that you use, identify each of your animals, you must always keep your records up to date, and you must complete movement documents for every move and notify them to SAMU. So getting started. New keepers must register your holding with the Scottish Government, which is also otherwise known as SCRIPPed. This will give you a holding number, and the holding number is unique to each holding. So you can just sort of see an example on the screen there. It might start like 66, and then you can just see it here on the screen. So you must register your holding within 30 days of the date that you first keep animals. You must also register with Animal Health, like your local office, and let them know where you're going to be keeping the stock. And this will then generate a flock or herd number. Again, you can see this on the tag shown in the diagram. So this block mark here will be used to identify all the animals on that holding, and it will also be required when you purchase tags or any other EIDs. Please note that you must also inform your local animal health within 30 days of ceasing to keep animals on that holding. Moving on to the actual sheep ID and traceability. To help with individual animal recording, electronic identification, or more commonly EID, was introduced. Electronic IDs can be an ear tag, an EID bolus in the animal's stomach, or a pastern tag, which is a band around the animal's lower leg. For tags in Scotland, these tags can be any colour. However, the slaughter tags in England must be yellow. If an EID bolus is being used, then a single matching black tag, which is non-EID, should be inserted in the animal's ear. All replacement tags are red other than in homebred sheep. So a simplified guidance of when to identify. There are different tagging requirements depending on what category your sheep are in. You should identify all sheep and goats within 6 months of birth for intensively farmed animals and 9 months for extensively farmed animals, or before they leave the holding of birth, whichever is sooner. Every lamb that becomes 1 year old and only has one tag must have the single tag removed and double tags with your own flock number inserted. This is called upgrading. And when you're doing this, just make sure that both tags have the same individual number. The electronic tag should be inserted in the left ear of the sheep, as shown here on the diagram on the right hand side. So if you're standing behind the sheep, it would be on the left ear. So we'll go over this replacing missing tags in a few slides' time. However, you must replace tags no later than 28 days of discovering them. Every double tagged sheep that loses its tags must have a new pair inserted. If only one tag is missing, an identical one can be used. Every single tagged animal that loses its tag must have a new one inserted. Replacement tag identities must be recorded in the holding register. The lost tag identity should be recorded if known. And every sheep or lamb not on the holding at birth that loses its tags must have red replacement tags fitted. So if you're ever in doubt, there's actually a flow diagram to help with how to tag your animals for a start, and also replacement tagging. So these can be found on the Sheep Identification Quick Guide, which can be found on the Scott EID website, and I've added a link to the end of this presentation. Or it can also be found on your Scottish Sheep and Movement document booklet. So tagging records. For tagging slaughter or store sheep, and so if the aim is to slaughter them before 1 year, you should apply a single electronic slaughter tag at before the animal is 9 months old, or when leaving the holding at birth. So you can see here in this diagram, and the slaughter tags just show your flock mark on them here. Key points to remember are: you must not use 1/2 of a double EID tag, because there's a penalty for doing so. 1/2 of a double tag can be used as a management tag only, but you must match this up later. It's better not to do so, because if it's not matched up later or sold on 1/2 of the tag, as in the EID half, then it would be classed as a breach. So you can see here on the bottom of the page an example of the record of identification of animals from the holding register. And you can also see under the identification of animals where it's got the flock mark and just the flock mark, and it says number of animals identified. This is called batch recording. So tagging homebred sheep. If you intend to keep the animal beyond 12 months of age, you must give the animal full EID tags. So one must be a double tag, one must be electronic tag, and the other a non-electronic tag. But like at 9 months old, or when leaving the holding of birth. Here you can see also at the bottom the record of identification of animals, that the individual number is also recorded. So you've got the flock mark and also the individual animal's number, which here they're recorded like sequentially. Retagging homebred sheep, you should remove the existing tag. So for example here, this animal's number 118, and you can replace with 2 identical matching tags. So this has been retagged with number 212. In slaughter sheep, you can replace with another yellow tag. Do not use red replacement tags for homebred sheep. You can buy matching tags, but it's easier to replace as you have to record it anyway in the record of replacement in your holding register. And also, if you record a slaughter tag replaced with another slaughter tag, you must also record this in your record of replacement tags. Bought-in sheep, you should remove any remaining tags and apply two new matching tags where these will be red. One thing to watch here is that that lambs that are tagged with a red EID slaughter tag must be sold by 12 months of age. The reason is that the slaughter tag was lost from the first animal, and you should only keep animals that are fully traceable. So the fact that it's lost its slaughter tag and it's been replaced with a red replacement tag, you've lost its traceability, so you should sell them before they're 12 months of age. Again, you should record these in your record of replacement tags in your holding register. So this is just an example of the record of identification in your holding register. By using the Scottish Government holding register template, which I have also added at the end of this presentation, and following the format of the example entries, you can help keep compliant with the regulation and reduce chance of penalty. So you can just follow the mandatory information, and every time you tag a sheep or identify a sheep or a goat for the first time, then you can just write it straight in. And I trust this has been an area of weakness found regularly at inspection. Again, you've also got a different section for record of replacement identification, which I also trust that keepers are failing to maintain an accurate record of replacements, and they're not recording sufficient information or recording information at all when they retag sheep, which falls into the category of farmers having no replacement tag record at all, or partial or incomplete records. So some useful tips and recommendations. Consider having a separate tag colour for each year to readily identify the age of the sheep. So for your breeding sheep, you can quickly identify them in ages. Use tags sequentially, so in order, so it's much easier for you when managing. Don't throw away any damaged tags and keep a note of them. Retagging sheep of all ages, make sure that any replacements are recorded. Make sure you have a stock of red EID tags on the farm, and tags should be replaced within 28 days of discovery. And any retagged slaughter animals must be slaughtered by 12 months because you cannot upgrade them. So common errors from inspections. Slaughter tag sheep are not fully upgraded to EID by 12 months of age. It's not allowed over 12 months. Sheep of an age requiring tagged have never been tagged, or excessive number of sheep with missing ear tags, and failure to use red replacement tags for re-identifying purchased sheep. So just to break up tonight's meeting, I've just put in a video here of the benefits of EID recording in sheep, as well as the compulsory legislation.
We came here to South Clunes 30 years ago in 1984. We started off with 700 ewes, and we've now taken that up to 1,300, along with the followers, 300 ewe lambs, plus all the lambs that we market through the year, so that's nearly 2,000. I've been running the farm for 30 years, and this last 2 or 3 particularly, Ewan has really taken on the role as farm manager, is doing and buying all the stock and really leading the charge on the EID and all the identification that we're getting involved with at the moment.
We started recording the sheep in the spring of 2015. The data that we collect at South Clunes here varies. For the lambs, we're really looking at live weight gains and getting lambs as close to 42 kilos of finishing weight as we can, and drafting them off and just being more selective with the feeding that they're getting.
But the really nice thing about EID and actually using weight records is that you can actually see an improvement in 1 month. If we go out and you weigh your lambs, say beginning of August, you go out a month later using EID technology, weigh them again, just in 4 weeks, you'll get their growth rates, you'll get their overall weights, and that will give you a huge amount of information about what's going on in the flock.
The ewes, we tend to use it for trials and also for adding in information such as their scan results, and I've also used it for getting a ewe efficiency figure from the lambs, working out the lamb weaning weight versus the ewe weaning weight, which is quite a benefit. Other data that we're looking at, weeding out ewes with problem with their feet, ewes with problems with rolling onto their backs, just general problem sheep we're hoping to make a note of. And when it comes to drawing the ewes off at the end of the year, we know the ewes that have caused us an issue and we can get them down the road. EID is certainly not a replacement for good stockmanship and getting out and looking at your stock. It's to be used as a complement with good husbandry. Our concerns when we started the EID were obviously if it was a big job to transfer the data from your box across to the computer. But really when we got into it, it was so simple. You just plug in your recorder into your laptop and it opens up a file and you just copy and paste it across to your Excel. So for instance, if I'm selling some lambs off that week, I can just copy and paste the lambs I've drawn off, stick it into a spreadsheet file and I put it into my sales column and all the lambs I've sold that week appear there. There's so many different benefits in the EID I see in the future. One of the main ones is with the ewes is to be selecting the ewes that are continually producing good lambs year on year for producing my ewe lambs in the future. And hopefully, as time goes on, that efficiency gene will pass through them and we'll have ewes that are more efficient.
It was really nice here today at South Clunes Farm to kind of be focusing on things we can control within the farming business. They've got a really clear goal here about what they want to achieve, where the focus needs to be in terms of efficiency drivers. They know what they want to get out from the business, and I think it's obviously that they're working very well together and they've got a clear plan for the future of the business.
If any farmer came to me and asked my advice on recording EID, I would say go for it. It really has got no drawbacks. Everything is positive. Whether you're gauging your lamb's growth rates or you're using it for monitoring movements on and off your holding, down to whether you're wanting to use it as a tool to monitor your ewes and how efficient they're being, everything is positive.
So yeah, that was just a nice wee video to break up the meeting and also show that the benefits of performance recording to improve efficiency. So I think we'll just run another poll now, just out of interest, to gauge who's all recording their sheep and their sheep movements and records in which way. So we'll just allow a few moments for everybody to answer. Okay, so moving on to sheep movement records. There are certain key timescales for recording information in your holding register. On-off movements for the holding should be recorded within 48 hours, as should when the stock are first identified and tags are replaced. That's also within 48 hours. And you should also keep annual inventory by the date which is specified by the government, which I'm led to believe is the 1st of December. So just a wee bit more about the annual inventory. By law, all keepers must carry out an annual inventory of all sheep and goats that they keep on every holding that they use. So this includes seasonal or winter grazing where you're registered as the keeper. The Scottish Government usually contact you by letter every year at the specified time and ask how many sheep and goats that you keep. It's advisable to return this, although not doing so is not a a cross-compliance breach, it does increase your chances of inspection. The stock numbers that you put in here should be accurate, as in the case of any inspection, they will work back to see that your records match what you've put in the inventory. And then just one last point here. If you've not received a copy of this, then you can actually request a copy from your local rural payments office. So you have the option to complete a continuous register, and this way you're maintaining accurate register of what exactly you have on each holding, as well as meeting the requirement to record on and off movements. Although doing it this way is optional, maintaining a running total and updating accurate gathers keeps the records up to date and makes the annual inventory submission more straightforward. You can also run the deaths and on-off movements separately. And here's just an example of what a continuous register might look like. So you've got the date, and then event you've put off or on or dead, number of animals, and then the identification and where the locations move from. Also make sure you put in the haulier's name, and that way you'll keep a running total. So if you had one death here, then your running total would be 825. Recording on movements. Animals moving on over 12 months old should have a pair of tags. You should record in your book or separate sheet referenced at the back the individual ID number of each animal, and Scotty ID is a facility that can be used in support of this. So just moving on to general movement points. Sorry, it's just frozen a second. Okay, here we go. So make sure that the haulier information is complete, as I said in the previous slide, and make sure that when you move sheep on, that you take note there's a standstill period of 13 days for sheep. Exemptions are moving to the slaughterhouse and breeding rams, which the same applies for bulls. And then you've got your separation facilities, which must be approved by rural payments. And the holding must be registered with animal health. So deaths, make sure that you record the deaths and record as they happen. Again, just an example extract from a holding register where you've got the date, event.
Hi,
and
Rebecca. It looks like we can't see your slides now. They seem to have disappeared.
Oh.
I think it's saying waiting to view, so there should be a box somewhere on the screen for you to click OK.
Is it just recently that you lost them?
Yeah, just the last slide, yeah. I'll switch it back to me, then switch it to you, I think.
Thank you. Is that better?
There we go. It's good.
Perfect.
Oh,
yeah, so I was...
No, now it's disappeared again. It appeared and then disappeared. We'll swap back once more.
Okay, thank you.
That's it.
Is that it?
Don't
Yeah,
touch anything.
sorry
Yeah.
folks about that, but technology. Yeah, so I was just going over death. So this is an example. Here's a continuous register example, as we've seen on the previous slide. But you should also record the identification of the animals if known. And again here, as I said, the running total, because there's one died, you would take that off. So it just makes it maybe a wee bit easier for your records. So also you SAMU documents, all moves must be accompanied by a movement document, and reported within 3 days. Full ID sheep must be individually recorded. So you've got a box here in the middle where you would write the EID numbers, and also slaughter tags, as I mentioned earlier, they can be recorded in.
Presentation is gone again, Rebecca.
Okay, do you want to just try? Good. Yeah, so as I was saying, the full EID sheet must be individually recorded. However, slaughter tags, slaughter animals can be recorded as a batch. So here in the EID section, you could put your flock mark. And also, in addition, if you attach a list of individual numbers with your SAMU document, make sure that you include the reference number at the bottom of the document, which can be just found here, just on the bottom right-hand side, and also the add on at the top of the document the departure CPH, just in case the two lists get separated. So just to go over movements and like a summary of the movements, they should be reported to SAMU within 3 days. Unless moved through a Scottish market or abattoir, which is called a critical control point. In that case, they do the movement there, and you must retain the movement document slip for 3 years, and you can also send it by email or fax. And the contact details are actually on your sheep movement document booklet. And moving on to medicine records. These records must be kept for 5 years. So it's the responsibility of the owner or keeper of food processing animals to adhere to the following requirements. There's no specific format required. It can be paper or computerized, but you must supply a printed copy if required by an inspector. When you purchase veterinary medicine products or otherwise acquire them, at the time you must record the product name and batch number, date of acquisition, the quantity, and the name and address of the supplier. When administering medicines, you must record the product name, date of administration, quantity administered, and the withdrawal period, and also identify the animals which were treated. If in the case a vet administers the medicine, then they should record in your keeper's records or give you written information on the drugs administered, and for you to write into the records. For medicines disposed of as opposed to used for treating animals, the keeper should record the date of disposal, the quantity of the product involved, and how and where it was disposed. So just going over again, for records, you should record replacement tags, record tagging, so that's retagging, like initial tagging of animals, sorry. Should record deaths which are commonly missing. It's advisable to keep continuous records and keep them up to date. You must keep them up to date, and record movement records, medicine records, and also you must complete the SAMU documents, which is the movement documents, and you must keep these for 3 years. So I've just added some useful contacts at the end of here. You've got the FAST website and also the link for Scott EID or SAMU themselves and your local animal health offices, as well as local government offices. But if you're not sure of who's best to contact, then you can always go through the FAST advice line for general queries, which you'll find the email address up in the corner here. And again, if you went into the FAST website, it's noted there. So there's plenty of guidance available online. I've added some links here for all the guidance. So you've got your simplified guidance from Scott EID, and I've also added in a Holden register template, just in case any of you want to go with that. So let's say that brings us to tonight's presentation. We can now answer any questions that anyone may have.
Yeah, good job, Rebecca. Thanks for that. We've got actually quite a few really good questions here. Some of them are pretty focused on individual specific, fairly unique examples, and I think we'll maybe come back to them. We'll possibly deal with that through email or contact you at a later date with that, but we'll try and flesh out some of the other stuff just now. So one, just to go back, I think would be a good place to start, would be 13-day standstills. Can you clarify bulls and tups? Do they incur a 13-day standstill?
No, so they don't incur a 13-day standstill as far as I'm led to believe. But you, do you have any other additional information there that you can add in, Robert?
No. So basically, because obviously periods of time, like we're coming into tupping time and key periods of the year, if you do have a ram breakdown or a bull breakdown, it's a pretty massive issue for your business. So there's an understanding there that it doesn't incur a 13-day standstill. What I would say though is just because it doesn't have a 13-day standstill doesn't mean we shouldn't be quarantining those animals as best we can. So do treat them, it doesn't shut your farm down, but do everything in your power to try and protect the animals that you've got from whatever might be coming in with these, and obviously buying clean, high health stock would be the best place to start with. But yeah, that's dead right. No 13-day standstill. What about 5 mile concessions?
Yeah, so you would contact your local animal health office, and they'll help you fill in sort of a concession form there.
So basically, if you've got a holding within 5 miles of your home farm, or of the furthest out, the closest field, so that doesn't make sense. So your home farm, any holding within 5 miles of that, you can basically use as an extension of your holding to basically facilitate easier movements at your end. So you need to keep an on-farm record, and that 5 miles is as the crow flies from the 2 closest fields to each other. So it's not the steadings, it's the actual fields themselves. So it does cover quite a big area, and it's pretty useful for winterings and summer grazings and things. But the important thing is to keep an on-farm record of what is on that holding. So Rebecca, can you clarify, there's a couple of people have asked the same, is about re-tagging bought-in sheep. Do you need to re-tag bought-in sheep if they've got 2 tags already?
No, sorry. That's only if they've lost their tag. So if it's a breeding animal and it's lost one of its tags, then you would cut out that tag, record what tag number that you've cut out, and replace it with 2 red tags, which will be unique to your holding. Yeah, so that's sorry, did I not make that clear? So yeah, just here on this slide, so you can just see the holding that it was registered on. You can see it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and it's number 18, 118, sorry. And then you would then cut out that tag and replace it with 2 red tags which have your holding number on, and it's 2 unique new tag numbers. So here it's shown an example of 217. And then so if it's a single tagged animal, obviously if it's lost its tag, then you'll just have to put in a replacement single red tag.
And what about, Rebecca, if you've got a situation where a sheep has lost 1 tag, which quite often happens, so a double tagged sheep that loses 1 tag, can you order a new replacement and then tag it the next time it's in?
So you can do that for the sheep, but I suppose because you're having to record it anyway, it might be just as easy to record it to put in 2 new ones. Would you agree with that, Robert?
I would, and I think practically it depends what scale you're on, of course. But if you've got a number of sheep and you've got a single tag, you've got a single tag that's been lost, leaving you with 1. When you order a new tag, that's a mark in time that your 28 days starts ticking. So if it was me, speak purely personally, if it was me, I would cut the identification in it, I would cut it out and replace it with 2, just so I know, I know the job's done. It's a complete job rather than waiting. If you order a new tag, you've done half the job, and I personally don't trust myself enough to go back and find that sheep and retag it. So purely for simplicity, I would replacement tag it, if that makes sense. Sorry, I've lost my place here. One just a good question is, from the example, why would the identification of a dead sheep not be known?
Well, for example, if it's a slaughter animal, potentially you could have like animal activity. The tags might be lost, so you would replace it if no. But obviously, a breeding animal to lose both tags might seem quite.
I had one last week, and I'll put my hand up. I'm a farmer, and I do have dead sheep from time to time. And by the time I got to it, I had no ears left. So
yeah.
that was a badger. It wasn't the decomposition, but so it's just one of those things. And I think it's, if possible, note down the identification. But if it's not got one, you can only do what you can do.
Yeah.
Somebody asked Rebecca as well about where do you send, so you've done your record of tagging and your record of replacements. When do you send it and who do you send it to, or indeed do you need to send it anywhere?
No, so that's like an on-farm records that you, if in the case of an inspection, that would get checked. So you need to be keeping these up to date. So your replacement tags not within 48 hours, just in case in the event of an inspection. Also, just for if there's any sort of disease epidemic or whatever, there needs to be full traceability. So it's on-farm records that just in case in the event that they're needed in that case.
Yeah. So another one, a good question that's come up a few times is, what about if you buy in breeding ewe lambs on a slaughter tag and then upgrading them? How do you do that?
So if you buy them in, they'll be tagged with the holding of which they were born on, and because you've brought them onto a different holding, your holding, then you would have to retag them with red replacement tags, and you would need to record the tag number that you've cut out, and then obviously record the 2 new ones that you've put in. But it's advisable to do that as soon as possible, because like if you're planning to keep breeding animals and they're only tagged on a slaughter tag, and if that falls out, and you'd have to replace it with a red replacement tag, so you wouldn't be able to keep it beyond 12 months. So if you are wanting to do that, then it's recommended that you do that as soon as possible.
Yeah. What about if you're moving sheep to rented grazing out with 5 miles? Do you need to record that with SAMU?
Yes, because you're moving it to a different holding, a seasonal holding. So you'd obviously have to record that, register that seasonal holding with animal health, and you would need to also fill in a movement document with SAMU, because it's out with your own holding. So you would need to. I know it's a wee bit like there. You would, in the document, obviously you would be the receiving keeper as well, so you would be filling in both sections, but it's still important to notify SAMU and that.
And in that case,
also put it in your.
You don't have to record individual identifications in that case. You can do totals. So it's 60 sheep moved to here because it's not changing ownership, which is useful. Although if you've got a scanner or something, it's probably quite useful to keep a record as well of who's there. And what about if you're moving them to a dairy farm for wintering? Whose responsibility is it to do the movement?
It is. I would say it's your responsibility to do the movement because it's your stock. So you're recording it in your SAMU document and also your holding register as a movement off farm to seasonal grazing again, or winter grazing in this case.
And it's probably less, the thing with that one is it's your responsibility because it's your basic payment, it's your business that you're running, and it's your subsidy you're putting at risk. So at the same time, the person receiving the animals should keep a record of what they've got too. You know, that it's good to keep them in the loop as well and keep a record, stick it in their book. But that's out with your control. You can only control your bit, so you do your movements, you keep your records as best you can, and don't rely on anybody else to do anything for you. Another one on 13-day standstills, if you move fat lambs to a market, are they exempt from a 13-day standstill?
What would you say there, Robert?
Yes.
I think they're still going through
Yes, they are.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
They're slaughter animals, so they're okay. So many questions coming. This is where do we go now? So there's a good question here from somebody who's had an inspection and they're currently recording everything on paper, including medicine records. What's the process? How can they do that, make that a bit simpler? Is there software packages, and what are the options? Or are inspectors perfectly happy receiving paper records?
Well, I would say the records, whichever way you want to keep them, but obviously, like, whatever makes the inspector's job easier is obviously going to help with inspection. As long as sort of if everything can be kept together, just to make it easy for checking, and also easy for you keeping a record. So I'd say, like, if you want to go paper records, then that's up to you, or electronic records. Again, if you were using the Scottish Government Holding Register, that's it's got example entries that you can just sort of follow the guidance there. And also you've got your options for more sheep recording sort of software, and that you've got the different recording softwares there. I'm not sure, have you done additional work at all, Robert, with the recording softwares, or have you not really had anything to do with that yet?
Yes. We've got our own SEC Livestock Records program, which does a fairly good job. There's so many options out there for things you can go to, and they're all useful. But I think if you speak to anybody who's inspecting, just because you've got a program doesn't mean it's all okay. You know, it's still a job that needs done, and it still needs to be kept up to date. So what they would say is they'll see some exceptionally good records on paper and some really bad records on programs. So just because the program would help, and if you're on a scale that would justify the cost, you know, excellent. And there's some great options out there, and there's good options that will actually help with wider management of your farm rather than just compliance. But it's not the be all and end all. They're worth a look. Certainly worth having. You know, speak to a few people, ask some questions, but I would be quite content if you're only looking at compliance. I think paper records can be as good as any, really. So if I've already got, next question is, if I've already got a holding number for cattle, will I get a new, sorry, not holding number, a herd number for cattle, or I get a new herd number for a new flock number for sheep?
Well, that number should say the same, shouldn't it? There, but you still need to record. You still need to register with Animal Health that you're keeping sheep as well, as cattle.
And that, I think, is a real key point: is don't be scared to ask questions of the department or Animal Health. You know, they're there to help. They're a lot better at helping in the what if I've done type of question, or what if I do question, rather than I've already done this, what should I do? So don't be scared to ask them a question. It's not you're not opening up the floodgates to inspection or anything. They just want you to be compliant. So don't be scared to give them a phone. Here's a good question. This question always comes up when you do a meeting like this. What if a sheep only has 1 ear? What do you do?
Oh gosh, I don't know. what I've never had a sheep with 1 ear there. What's the recommendation there?
It's a tricky one, isn't it? It's a fairly unique situation. You know, it'll happen. It's not unique's the wrong word, but it's not particularly common, and you could put 2 in 1 ear, but to me that would be more of a welfare issue or a challenge, I would personally put the EID tag in the ear and note it down. And you're unlikely to have more than one of them. If you do have more than one of them, there's something on the go. So keep a note of it. I know for cattle, if you put in one tag in an ear and then write down that is the cow with one ear, it's a fairly, in your herd, it's a fairly unique situation. So in sheep, you can only do what you can do. If it genuinely only has one ear, that's the best you can do. If it's got something left of an ear or somewhere you can put a tag at the appropriate time, I would have a go. But as I say, you can only do what you can do, and these outliers do happen, and it's one of those things. But I don't think a one-eared sheep is going to be a cross-compliance disaster. It's one of those things. So I think we've covered all our questions. Just bear with me a wee second, and we'll just check. One question is, what is SAMU? What does that stand for?
So that's the Scottish Animal Movement Unit. That's what that stands for. So that's your sheep and your goat movement document, which in your little booklet, and it's got three pages in it, and that can be obtained from your local rural payments office. So that's what that document is. Sorry, Anne. Should have said that.
Yeah. And again, they're very approachable people. If there's any issue or anything, it's worth give them a shout and see what's happening. And another question is, for record keeping, you can do it on Scott EID, but is it compulsory to record it online on Scott EID?
You don't have to record it online on Scott EID. That can just be used as an aid. If you got any more at all to say on that,
no,
Robert?
That's exactly
it.
What you see on there though is you've got your holding register, and you can keep your holding register on there. Many people do, but what you'll get is your reads from the market as well. So it's quite a good place to go and see, as Rebecca said, through that critical control point. You'll see what's been read, what each lot of sheep that went through, what the numbers were and things. So it's actually quite a good record in itself. The stuff that it's sending back to you is quite a good record of tags and things. Probably, again, for when it comes to reading tags, I would be more inclined to do it myself. Using the market's great, and it's a great service, but at the same time, if you had time, I would be nipping through the race and reading tags either visually or with a reader, just because, again, it's my payment, it's my problem. If there's any issue at the market end, the buck stops with me. So I would be inclined to do that yourself. That being said, the markets have come out, or the readers and the tags and everything has come a long, long way, and the market reads are now really pretty good. But again, if you've got time, capacity to do it, I would be inclined to be reading my own tags before they went. And I think that concludes the questions session. As I say, there's one or two pretty specific ones which we will come back to, because there's probably more value having a better discussion. And probably, for, as Rebecca said, for any other questions, it's worth keeping the Farm Advisory Service helpline in mind, and certainly don't be scared to ask any questions. So moving on, basically that probably sums, if anybody's got any last ditch questions, get them in just now, because basically we're just about to round up. And if there's no other questions, just to highlight, the next webinar's coming. So this is a series of new entrants webinars for the Farm Advisory Service. The next one is on ruminant nutrition. That's with my colleagues Karen Stewart and Mary Young. And then that's followed by winter livestock health with Megan Ferguson. Is the grass always greener? Is speakers from across Europe. So that'll be quite an interesting panel type session. And then the two at the end are two of mine, which are one is beef production in South America. So looking at Brexit going forward, we're looking like we're going to, or potentially going to be more exposed to a global market, and we've got Alan Cameron, who's very well placed to discuss what happens in Argentina, how it works, and what's driving them. And then the final one is Doug Avery, who many of you will know. Doug's coming to do his Bouncing Forward from a Crisis webinar, and that's on I should have said the dates, but you can see the dates on the screen. So the last one is the 16th of November 2020. So with that, and these are again free to attend, and it'd be great to see you all along, or some of you along to that if it's of interest. With that, I would just like to point out that there is no such thing as a free lunch. We're not face-to-face today, unfortunately, but we do have a quick feedback form that's sent out just after the webinar. And if you could get that back to us, that would be really good. It does just take 2 minutes to fill out. And again, big thanks to Farm Advisory Service, and also thanks to Malcolm for doing the tech tonight. I think he's had his work cut out, and also to Rebecca for ably getting us through that sheep record session. But it was a bit of a whistle-stop tour. It's only an hour, so probably if you do have any other questions, don't be scared to ask via the Farm Advisory Service website. So thank you all for listening in, and I'll wish you all a good evening. Thank you.